Thanks, Michaela. It's great to be with you guys here on Christmas Eve morning. It looks like attendance is down a little bit from last week, but glad to be here together. Some of you aren't used to sitting so close up front to where I'm at, but I'm kind of enjoying this. You're probably not. And the other thing, it's different having the young folks, the kids and the children. So far, man, they have just been incredibly quiet, and I don't know why that is. And I'm not expecting it to last very long as I speak. This is not a Merry Christmas to hear me speak in front of them. But, Merry Christmas. And here's the thought. Is this true? Jesus plus nothing equals everything. I mean, and you know the answer, like theoretically or theologically, that that's true, but what if we had a Jesus-only Christmas? That all the things that we hold dear and some of the traditions and that which makes Christmas to us, that we didn't have that. Meaning, let's say there was no lights, no Christmas lights, and there was no tree, and there's no presents, and there's no shopping, there's no cookies, and there's no music, and there's no TV specials, not even a Charlie Brown Christmas special, and here's the big one. What if you're by yourself? You don't have any family that, let's say, live near you. Maybe you don't have any family anymore. Because we often say, Christmas is about family. And it's so important for us to get together. Or maybe your family is nearby, or you just don't get along too well. And so it's not Christmas if the family gets together. And so the family dynamic plays in. But what if it was all that stuff is pushed back, and there's none of that, and it's Jesus only? Can you still have a good Christmas? Still have a Merry Christmas? Or is there something missing? I mean, even here we have the trees, and the candles, we have the music, and those things. And what if we pushed it all back and said, no, it's just Jesus, because we found these things to be distracting. Not that they are, not that they need to be. And I'm not saying you do away with that. I'm not saying that at all. But if it was just Jesus, is it still a good Christmas? And I make this the everything Jesus, because you know how all this stuff tends to diminish the importance of Christ. I mean, we know that. If you're asked the reason, what's the reason for this season, we know the answer. But then we have all these other things, and if you're not careful, pretty soon, Jesus, although we know better, he gets pushed off to the side. And we don't want to do that. So at least for this morning, if we can just keep the focus strictly on Christ, and we know it's about his birth, we get that. And so out of Colossians 1 this morning, that he is the image of the invisible God. I put it this way. Jesus is the God you can see. And it's not like we can see him like right now, but when he came to earth, when he was here for 30-some years, I mean, he was visible. We could see this Jesus. We could literally hear this Jesus. We could touch this Jesus. This Jesus would eat. He took on human form. He's just like God the Father, whom you cannot see, because he's spirit. You know that before this first Christmas, Jesus existed. It's not like he wasn't, and all of a sudden he was. The Son of God has always been. But now he took on human flesh. And really, Christmas is about the celebration of incarnation. Incarnation is a word, we don't use it a lot. It just means to take on flesh or human flesh, to become a human being. So Christmas is celebration of incarnation. Yeah, it's birth, but it's more than just birth, that he became a human being. And we celebrate that because for all that it means. It also says in Colossians 1 that he is the firstborn of all creation, meaning that Jesus is God eternal. It doesn't mean he was the first being to ever be born. We know that. We know better than that. But it just means he's always been. Before anything else was ever created, because in him, it says, all things were created. meaning he created everything. Jesus is creator God. And you know that. And when we think of creation, we normally think of the 6 days of creation in Genesis 1. Well, we know about that creation, all the stuff that makes up the earth and the stars and the people, but there's more than just that 6-day creation. It says, in him all things were created, both in the heavens and on earth. Here's what he created, not just what we can see, but what we can't see. He created not just visible, but he created the invisible. How do you create invisible? I mean, isn't it hard enough to create that what we can see matter, that which is tangible and touchable? But he did more than that. He created what you can't see. I mean, how do you prove that? I just created something. You can't see it, but I did it. You go, I don't think so. Well, this is what that form it takes. The invisible, whether thrones or dominions or rulers or authorities, he created spiritual powers and the reporting structure and how they work together. That's allowed this whole spirit world, which we don't give a lot of credit to, which is somewhat mysterious. And because we can't see it, we think that maybe it's not important. Or maybe it doesn't exist, but it does. Because he's creator God. And he made all of these things. And don't you know that what you cannot see is more important than what you can? Really it is. We think the physical is much more important, but it's not. Even in human beings, your heart or your spirit is much more important than your appearance. That what you look like, we want to say, oh, it's so important. It has an importance, but it's not nearly as important as to what's inside. That's really who you are. You know that in relationship, you don't primarily marry for appearance, do you? And it doesn't mean you pick the bottom of the barrel. We're not saying that, but right? We're not saying that. You know better than that. Bobby, we're not saying that, right? Bobby, the youth guy that was up here that didn't know we didn't have Sunday school this morning. And I mean, I'm sitting there going, is that just the way young people are today? It seems to be. But what makes matters worse, we actually pay him, to come up here and jungle everything up. Well, Bobby, and he's probably he got engaged. Like, when was it, Bobby? You better get this right. Which time, right? Which one? No.
About a month and 2 days.
About a month and 2. Who's counting, right?
Yeah.
But yeah. So they're getting married September 8th. Is that right? That's next year. But I know you chose the cream of the crop, right? Yeah, right. Yeah. You married up, didn't you? It's important to marry up. And then you, and of course, Sarah, this is good, isn't it? She's very attractive to you, right? Yeah. This could end right now if you said, no, not really. I think she's a good cook and she cleans well. But although you find her incredibly attractive, it's more than just that. It's what you can't see. It's the heart, it's the spirit, it's the attitude, it's God. And we know that, right? That's what keeps relationships together. What you can't see. We enjoy what we can, but what we can't is much more important, because what you know is this: you could marry someone who's incredibly attractive and it doesn't stay together. Because too much emphasis is put on what is seen and what is not seen. So God, the creator God, creates the invisible, all the unseeable. And not only that all things have been created through him and for him. So what he has created, whether it's visible or visible, it's for me. You say, well, isn't that kind of selfish? God has a legitimate selfishness. I mean, he demands to be worshiped. No one else should demand to be worshiped. I mean, maybe we do, but that's not a righteous demand unless it's God. He demands, it's for me. I didn't create it all for you. You benefit from it, but I created it for me. It all comes back to me. It all comes around to me. It says in Scripture that he is a jealous God, so don't put anything before him or in place of him, because it all comes back to me. He's made it all, and all of it is for him. And this is an incredible thought too. When you're thinking about Jesus, he is before all things, and in him all things hold together. Really? Yeah. All things hold together. In what he created, he didn't create it and then just leave it behind, forget about it, go do something else. I got other planets to attend to. It all holds together all the time in him. He's like the divine glue that keeps everything from flying and falling apart. There's something that's called the solar system. Now, I don't know much about this stuff, but it's about the earth and planets and sun and moon and stars and comets and asteroids and on all this that he created, and he watches over it. He keeps the whole thing in place so it doesn't fly apart. If ever he stopped holding it together, if for a moment, for an instant, it would cease to be and we would just fly out into somewhere. Did you know the earth sits and tilts on an axis of about 23.5 degrees? Now, it varies some, but right now, as we sit here, it's on an axis of 23.5, and it rotates. Do you know what would happen if it did not rotate? What do you think would happen? The earth no longer rotates. It's just right here. It would mess things up. Do you know what would happen if we stopped rotating around the sun? I mean, that's how it works, right? We go around the sun. If we just stopped, it would ruin your day. That's what would happen. We would cease to exist. Do you know what would happen if all you that are in farming, we cease to have 2 inches of topsoil? Not very long, we would all starve. We owe our existence basically to topsoil and the fact that there's warmth and there's air, but God created this whole universe. What do you think would happen if the earth suddenly stopped and started going in the opposite direction? God just said, I want to, sort of mix things up here. It's been going, I don't know in what direction it is, where it's going. And you know what? I'm a creator God. Let's go the other way. What would happen? We would just be all messed up. And that was basically happen. Did you know you can get a degree in what's called Earth System Science? And there's all these systems on this earth. And one system is atmosphere. It has to do with the air. Don't you know that air is important? If you don't think air is important, just see how long you can hold your breath. Ready? Go. How long does it go before you need another breath? Really fast. Air is really important. That's atmosphere. Then there's called the hydrosphere. That rain comes and then it evaporates and clouds and we need water. How long can we go without water? A couple days, maybe a week. That's it. Then everything starts to fall apart. Everything starts to dry up. And we dehydrate. And when you dehydrate, you're in trouble. You have that much of a window to hydrate. And so there's the atmosphere, the hydrosphere, there's the biosphere, which has to do with life, how the whole thing life. And God keeps all of this together, things we hardly even know about. And here's one thing. Did you know that your body is made up of 11 systems? One is your circulatory system. Do you know what happens? Do you know what happens when your blood does not circulate well through your body? Any guesses? I'll tell you what happens. You lose feeling in your extremities. Things start getting really cold. And that's just the precursor of things starting to fall off. That's what happens. Meaning you don't live very long. When someone needs a transplant and they don't get it for a while, they start feeling it in their extremities. And pretty soon they can't feel it in their extremities. And when you can't feel it and you can't walk, it just means organs are starting to shut down. And then there's the respiratory system. Then there's the nervous system, the skeletal system, the digestive system. And all this stuff has to work all the time. And the minute one little thing doesn't work, do you know what you do? You go to the doctor. And you say, fix it, would you? Because if you don't, not only do I hurt, not only am I uncomfortable, but if you don't get on top of this, I think I'm going to die. God holds all the systems together. I'm guessing last night you had some sleep. I don't know, 6 hours, 8 hours, 10 hours, I don't know. But even when you're not conscious, do you know what God does? He continues to hold your systems in place. If you had to keep track of your heartbeat, how long would it go before? It wouldn't be very long. You just cease to exist. If you had to tell yourself, breathe, don't breathe, breathe, inhale. How long is that? Not very long at all. So if even in one moment he didn't hold all things together, everything and everyone as we know it would fly apart and no longer exist. All that he had created would be destroyed. And that's the kind of God, that's the kind of, what I call it, the kind of Jesus, the kind of Christ. Even when we don't think about him, he's always thinking about us. He's always holding things together. And sometimes we think about relationships. Some of you folks have been married for like a long time. If you've been married over 50 years, would you put your hand up right now? Over 50 years. Keep them up. Yeah, 50 years. Woo, right? That is, I didn't have to tell you to clap. I didn't have to tell you. You didn't sit there going, yeah, so what? You weren't like that. If you've been married 2 weeks, I mean, good for you. Right, I don't mean that, but how can you stay together after 50 years? How is this possible? Well, I'll tell you, one reason, because young people think, that's ridiculous, right? Why would you do that? I mean, get what you can out of it and move on. Move on. And we look at him and go, what's with you? Why would you? Because you know, they don't have the same energy they used to have. They don't look the same way they used to look. They're not maybe as live as they used to be. I mean, they're still there, but sometimes I got to go, hey. You know what keeps relationships, I think, together? Not just in longevity, but also in the richness and fullness. I think God does this stuff. Because left up to us, I don't know. This one's kind of getting old, or this one, we've run the course, we've had our fun, and God keeps relationships. So young folks, it may be hard to understand that the longer a healthy marriage is together, the greater the love they have for one another. Do you guys get, it's really, yeah. It's just like that. Some of you know, it was about a year ago, my mom passed away. It was January 3rd. And my mom and dad, they're married, 60 years or so. And I just out in visiting out in Iowa a couple weeks ago. And and my dad doesn't remember things much anymore. He often doesn't know who I am. And when some people think, well, that could be God's blessing to him. Thank you for that thought. But, you know who he remembers and who he's asking about all the time? Oh, where's your mom at? Sometimes within a minute, he'll ask 4 times. Hey, I haven't seen her for a while. And he's not asking about me or the other kids. He's asking about his wife of 60 years. Because of anyone on this earth, that's who he misses. It's God who, can I say this? He holds all things, including relationships, together. So the longer that you're together, the richer and the more wonderful it is and it becomes. And so that's why we say when you've been married over 50 years and there's just these benchmarks, we just spontaneously say, man, that is incredible, that is wonderful. Thanks be to God, because this does not easily and normally and naturally happen. People get tired of one another and they go their opposite directions. So we are so dependent upon God holding things together. And it says not only that Jesus holds all of his creation together. That's just what he does. That's the kind of God, because I can't hold it together. And you can't hold your world together. But he can, and he does. And that's why he came, to do just that. Not only that it says he is also, like if you needed anything in addition to, he is also head of the body, that is the church, and he is the beginning, the firstborn from the dead, so that he himself might come to have first place in everything. Can I just say, Jesus is a first place God. He wants first place, like all the time in our life. He wants first place with our time. He wants first place in our relationships. So we don't put our children before God. We don't put our spouse before God. We don't even put ourselves before God. God comes. He gets first place in all things. He gets first place in our health. He gets first place in our finances. Especially, he wants first place in the only holiday that bears his name, that is Christmas. Just give me first place. And can you keep me in first place? Even if prices of things go like this, even if there's long lines, even if people get a little bit snippy this kind of time of year, and some of them do, don't they? I remember a number of years ago, I'm pulling into around Christmas time, we're at Glenbrook, and you know how you're trying to get a parking space? Remember, you're trying to get a parking space with like a couple of days before Christmas, and I get this parking space, but I beat this other car. Next thing you know, a couple of guys come piling out of the car. Early, you want to fight it out? Here, it's Christmas. And I would have won anyway, but but that's not the main point, right? I mean, they come out of the car, I come out of the car, just something like that. And I go, this is stupid, it's Christmas, but people, they're on edge about parking places and line, and you got the last box or the last, and it's just crazy. Or people driving or whatever it is. You're giving him first place because it's his day, it's his time, but then it always is. So back to the initial question. Jesus plus nothing equals everything. I want you to go that I know it's true, and I want to live as though it's true. I dropped the ball too. Just as much maybe, or maybe even more than some or most or maybe all of you. But we know this. We know this is a fact. And even if everything in Christmas went away and all you had was Jesus, he's all you need. Because it really is so that Jesus, you don't need anything else. He equals everything. For in him and through him and for him are all things. And I think that's just a sign that I ought to stop. Let me pray. Lord, thank you this morning for your goodness, your greatness to all of us. And it's true that you came in the form of human being, of a man. The celebration of the incarnation, that's really what it is. May we fully celebrate, today and tomorrow. We don't need to stop there. We can celebrate all year long your incarnation. You came in the form of a human being, in flesh. It made all the difference. And God, we thank you for being Creator God, the visible and the invisible, of holding all things together. And it all goes back to you, through you, for you. You deserve all the credit. You deserve our lives. May we freely give that to the only one to whom it belongs, that is, Jesus the Christ, the Messiah. We pray it now in Christ's name. Amen.